It's nighttime in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The year is 1966. The place is the TNT area, an abandoned munitions plant on the outskirts of town. And there's a group of young people having a party. They don't know it yet, but they are about to become part of local legend. In the years that follow, newspapers across the country will run stories about a man with glowing red eyes who's been spotted lurking around Point Pleasant, terrifying motorists and haunting lovers on their late-night trysts. He'll even be blamed for the collapse of a nearby bridge that kills 46 people. But when the dust settles, very few will believe that the so-called Mothman was anything more than an overactive imagination, or maybe a hoaxer trying to drum up business. Hi, I'm your host, and today we're answering the extraordinary. What was the Mothman and why do people still believe in him? If you've heard of the Mothman before, you probably know that he was spotted in the mid-1960s in the small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, population 5278. But these days, no one really knows exactly where Point Pleasant is unless they live there. So to help you get your bearings, let me tell you this. Point Pleasant sits about an hour south of Charleston, West Virginia, and roughly 30 minutes north of the Ohio River. It's also just down the road from the abandoned TNT area, which is where our story begins. On November 12, 1966, 3 teenagers were driving home from a party in the isolated TNT area when they spotted a strange 7-foot-tall creature standing at the side of the road. The teens described the beast as humanoid, with wings folded against its body like a bat. When the animal took flight, they said it resembled a giant moth. And yes, that's where the name Mothman comes from. According to the boys, the creature had bright red glowing eyes that seemed to stare right through them, and then just as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished. Now, paranormal investigators say this was the first of some 200 sightings of the Mothman that would occur over the next 2 years. Some witnesses would see the creature perched atop buildings and telephone poles, while others would spot him soaring through the skies. Many would hear him before they saw him, flapping his enormous wings and letting out blood-curdling screams. And here's the thing. These sightings weren't random. There was definitely a pattern to them. Take, for example, December 1966. For 5 nights straight, residents reported seeing a pair of bright red lights floating through the sky like a pair of luminous balloons. Then on Christmas Eve, a man named Roger Scarberry was driving home from a night shift at the nearby Silver Bridge when he slammed on his brakes for a pair of glowing red eyes staring at him from the side of the road. A week later, John Kiefer was working on a storm drain near the riverfront when he heard a loud flapping sound overhead. He looked up to see a large winged creature circling slowly above him, and on January 14, 1967, 4 teenagers claimed they saw the Mothman dancing in the middle of a bridge. But the most compelling Mothman sightings didn't happen in some desolate forest or abandoned factory. They happened in broad daylight. On February 12, 1967, 13-year-old Sandra Galt and her friend Roger Manns were walking home from school when they spotted a pair of glowing red eyes staring at them from the roof of a nearby building. They turned and ran, and when they looked back, they saw the creature launch itself into the air and disappear behind a cloud of dust. 2 weeks later, hundreds of townspeople gathered at the fairgrounds to try and catch a glimpse of the creature, which they now believed was haunting the area. One of those people was photographer Bill Weber, whose blurry black and white photo of a winged humanoid would become the most famous image associated with the Mothman. These sightings continued sporadically until December, when the Silver Bridge collapsed, killing 46 people. If you're wondering what the Silver Bridge is, allow me to enlighten you. The Silver Bridge was a 1,500-foot-long cantilever structure that carried U.S. Route 35 across the Ohio River. It connected Point Pleasant, West Virginia to Gallipolis, Ohio. For many years, the bridge had been a popular spot for late-night trysts, a tradition that led to it being nicknamed Lover's Leap. But on December, at approximately 5:20 p.m., the bridge collapsed. According to eyewitnesses, the roadway buckled, sending 9 automobiles plunging 75 feet into the frigid waters below. Out of the 51 people inside those cars, only 16 would survive. Unsurprisingly, many people in Point Pleasant blamed the Mothman for the disaster, believing that his presence somehow caused the bridge to fail. And while it's true that several people had reported seeing the creature near the bridge prior to the accident, that doesn't necessarily mean he was responsible for it. The truth is, we have no idea why the bridge collapsed. After examining the wreckage, engineers concluded that a fracture in a critical support cable had likely caused the bridge to buckle. But there's no consensus on what caused the fracture. Some blame faulty construction, while others point to corrosion caused by water and chemicals. What we do know is that the town's reaction to the disaster was intense. On the night of the bridge's collapse, an estimated 2,000 people gathered in the high school football field to pray. Then, every night following, people would gather in the street to watch for the Mothman, hoping to catch a glimpse of him before he disappeared forever. He did eventually disappear, but not before making a few final appearances. On January 16, 1968, the Mothman was seen one last time. This sighting was particularly disturbing because it occurred at the site of the bridge's collapse. Those who witnessed him that night were never able to identify the source of the glowing red eyes that stared back at them. The case would remain open for another year as investigators desperately tried to track down the elusive creature. But by 1969, interest in the Mothman began to wane. By the early 70s, the sightings stopped completely. So what was the Mothman? Well, if you ask most people in Point Pleasant, they'll tell you he was nothing more than a trick of the light. In fact, they'll be quick to point out that many of the supposed Mothman sightings can be attributed to mundane phenomena like owls, helicopters, and foxes. As for the bridge collapse, well, they'll just point to the official report. But if you talk to paranormal investigators, they'll tell you that the Mothman was a real creature who may have even predicted the bridge's collapse. To this day, people are divided over whether the Mothman was an actual monster or merely a figment of the townspeople's imaginations. But one thing is certain: he's left an indelible mark on the community. Today, the Mothman is synonymous with Point Pleasant. You can buy Mothman memorabilia at the local gift shop, attend the annual Mothman Festival, or even stay at the historic Mothman Museum and Research Center, which is dedicated to chronicling all things paranormal. In fact, paranormal investigators claim that the sightings haven't stopped, that the Mothman is still out there, and he's waiting for his moment to strike again. Maybe they're right. Maybe the Mothman is still lurking in the shadows, patiently waiting for another bridge to fall. Or maybe it was all just a product of mass hysteria. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to learn about another scary cryptid, I recommend watching our previous video about the Beast of Bray Road. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time.